Hey everybody, it's Will from the Back 40, and this message is going out to all of the Republicans who pushed for conceal and carry laws, Second Amendment advocates all over the country that have spent hours and hours and hours on social media advocating for the right to conceal and carry, making the argument that we need the right to do this to stand up to a tyrannical government. Because I've been involved in this for over 30 years. I was there when all of these arguments played out. And now you're not going to turn around and put all of that behind you and pretend you didn't say it so that you can justify this latest shooting by ICE in Minnesota. Let's talk about it. First of all, you're the folks that made the argument that the Second Amendment was put in place not only to form militias in this country to defend this country against a foreign threat. You made the very implicit argument that the Second Amendment was put in place to defend American citizens against the actions of a tyrannical government. You know, say like federal troops going into the city of Minneapolis and killing an unarmed woman in her own vehicle while she was turning away from the officers that were confronting her. And then today, an ICU nurse carrying a legal conceal and carry, which had been taken off of him, by the way, before he was shot, according to the videos I've seen today, being unalived on live camera from multiple different angles. That's the kind of tyranny you were talking about. The kind of tyranny where a federal government oversteps its bounds, where a police force oversteps its bounds and takes away the rights of American citizens. That's why you said we needed the Second Amendment. And now today, you're going to go on social media and make the argument that these killings were justified? I don't think so. We're going to call you out for it. Here's the other thing I want to make clear as a political consultant, because there may be a lot of people in America that don't know this, but I do. And others that have worked in the political realm know this as well. All across the country, law enforcement came out against these conceal and carry laws that were put in place that didn't require training on the part of your average citizen. Sheriff's departments, police chiefs, people with years and years of law enforcement showed up at these meetings, showed up at these state capitals to say, don't do this. You're arming a population, and by not requiring training, you're putting law enforcement in danger. And not only did you say that was okay, not only did you pass these laws anyway, even though you claim to support law enforcement, you went a step further than that. In some states, like my state of Missouri, Republicans even tried to put laws in place that made it okay for police officers in a state to file charges or to arrest federal officers that enforced federal gun law that was out of sync with state gun law. Let me say that one more time. In some red states, like my state of Missouri, Republican elected officials tried to put laws in place that made it okay to arrest federal law enforcement agents if they were enforcing federal gun laws that were more stringent than local gun laws. That's a fact. You can easily find that with a modicum of research. And now you're going to turn around and defend the actions of a tyrannical government? You made the argument all along that if a law enforcement agent isn't trained well enough to understand the difference between a real threat and a citizen just carrying out their constitutional right of conceal and carry, then that blames at the feet of the law enforcement agent? And now you're going to turn around and say that just because this guy had a conceal and carry, that he's to blame for what happened to him today? That dog won't hunt. We're not going to let you do that. You have to be consistent. And as a firearm owner, let me tell you where this is going. There are three kinds of people in this country. There are victims of firearm abuse in this country. There are people like me that were raised around hunting and firearms and have a respect for them and understand the damage that they can do and keep them out of the reach of children, keep them concealed, etc. And then there's the third group. There's the group of people that don't know a whole lot about firearms. They're looking in from the outside. They're watching what's happening, and their opinion of firearms is being developed by what they see on TV. What do you think's going to happen when these laws are put up in front of the American people and the vast majority of Americans who have no experience with firearms see what's happening on our streets? See what's happening in Minneapolis, like what happened today and what happened to Renee Good. What side do you think they're going to come down on? Rightly so. You have completely turned your back on the narrative that you created to justify the Second Amendment allowing for conceal and carry without any training in every state for ages all the way down to children. You've turned your back on that to defend the tyrannical actions of law enforcement officials in Minnesota. And I'm not going to let you do it, and I'm not going to forget about it, and nobody else should. Every one of you Republican elected officials that stood up on your high horse hobby and made the argument that a law enforcement agent should know the difference between a threat and a citizen who's just carrying, every one of you that said federal law enforcement should be held accountable to state laws, and that could mean arresting them on the spot if they enforce federal law that's more stringent than state law. And every one of you said that these laws needed to be put in place in order to push back against a tyrannical government. All that is playing out in front of you right now, in front of your very eyes. And what are you doing? Are you coming out to say that, yes, we have to defend these folks in Minnesota, even though they disagree with us politically, in order to be true to the original arguments that you made? No, you're not doing that. You're turning your back on all of those original arguments. You're scapegoating the people of Minnesota. You're claiming that all those original arguments that you made were not true, and now these are the arguments that are true. That's horse shit. And it's stacked higher than anybody ought to be allowed to stack it and still say that they've got a valid case for the original argument that they made. So let's see you, Second Amendment people. Stand up and support those original arguments that you made, because if you do, you've only got one choice, and that's to reach the conclusion that what's happening in Minneapolis is wrong. It's the summation of every fear you had, and if you don't do that, then you never believed in what you said to begin with. You're just another Republican shilling for Republican policy and for a Republican president at all costs. And don't come on here and try to bullshit me with your comments, because I live amongst you. I'm one of you. I know what you've said all these years. And so does everybody else that lives in rural America. So shame on you. Shame on you. Grow some testicular fortitude and get out on social media today and start speaking out against this. And for all of you Republican elected officials in office, stand up today. Stand up today and say, this is a bridge too far. This is wrong. And we're going to take action against this president, action against ICE, action against the Department of Homeland Security to stop it. If you don't, you're just a blowhard wasting air in a strong, stiff, cold Minnesota wind.